with these beautiful, wonderful people who also inspire me like myself. So I feel really blessed to be here with all of you.
The wolves and dragons.
Wow, I'll be crying before we've even started. Are we missing anyone, or are we missing Swami Satchidananda and Sri Brahmananda, a lot of the old Swamis, they say that yoga is when you are missing nothing. How great is that? Yoga is when you are missing nothing. So sometimes I'm like, are we missing anyone? Have we got everyone? We've got Emerson, so now we're all whole. Bless you both. Thank you so much for inviting me. I must admit, when I looked on the altar, I was like, wow, I think I might have to take a picture and send it to my mum, because I think she thinks that I sit out in the forest most of the time and nobody knows me or anything. So I almost burst out crying. I was like, wow. So I brought you, we're going to try and bring you Shamdas. And I was trying to get it framed properly. My first teacher was Sri K. Patabi Joyce, and I kind of wanted to stick him in a special frame for you, but next time I come down I'll bring it to stick on the altar, because he's obviously your teacher now as well, because he was my first teacher. And how fortunate I was to be with such an incredible person, because he wasn't just an absolutely spectacular yoga teacher, because he taught Ashtanga for 70 years. The same practice every day, all except a new moon and a full moon, without fail. Even when he was at his very saddest, his eldest son actually committed suicide, and as you can imagine, for a parent, it's like one of the worst things that could ever happen. He still came into the studio and his students gave him strength to carry on. And so sometimes we would see him, sometimes he would be this larger than life, Ekam, Dway, very bad lady, very bad man. Or sometimes he would be just this person who you could see was sad, just the same as all of us. Like he said, we just have to be ourselves. Because yoga is not a negation of life, it helps us get into life, the good, the bad and the ugly. And we all know those things happen. But what it does is it picks us up. It helps us lift ourselves up again so that we can carry on. And I love that about him. He was a very real person. He wasn't, I think sometimes we tend to put these people, what I did when I first met him, like on, so high up. And then I remember him once saying, don't put me too high up, very long way to fall. And I love that, I was like, wow, that is so cool. And his teaching was consistent, even when he was very sad. And I remember one time, it was towards the end, and his wife had just passed, Saraswati, and he was in the back of the room, and his grandson, Sharaf, was teaching. And I was in the back of the room with a few friends of mine, and I wanted to put myself really close to him, because I got this feeling that he wasn't going to move. And so he was in the back of the room, quietly crying, obviously with the loss of his wife. And then I heard this lady say, I paid all this money to be with this great teacher, and he's in the back of the room crying. And I was like, you're not getting this. Like, sometimes you don't have to talk to people and say an awful lot of very inspiring stuff. Sometimes it's better to just shut up and just sit there and be with someone. That's the best thing you can ever do. And so that was a big teaching for me. And then also the other thing he would do, which was kind of interesting, bearing in mind now there's a lot of conferences was he'd say, you, 5:30, you come conference. And so he'd do it to a few of us, and so we'd wait on the steps, and then he'd let us in, and he used to have a place with dog food, and then he'd make this tea, and beggars would walk by and he'd give them tea. So we'd all sit down, and the first time no one knew what was happening, so we just all sat in a circle. And then he said, begin. So we just, half an hour, so 5:30 till 6, and then at 6 he went, now you go, conference over. And he got up and left. And so at the time, some of us, as you can imagine, were a little bit bemused. We were like, okay. But then as time went by, I went, wow, we are sitting with this holy being. He's letting us sit in his house and sit with him and see everything about him, nothing hidden. I mean, what an amazing thing that is. So that really made me, I wanted to be like that myself. I wanted to be, you know, everything that I am as a human being, the good, the bad and the ugly, and not hide any of that from people, and always try and be real. And so that's the one thing that I find he taught me more than the asana practice. Of course, he did teach us some pretty crazy asanas, but at the end of the day, you know what, the asana practice can be negated by you just simply chanting Om. If everybody chants Om together loud enough, whatever you believe in will come into your life. That I do believe. And you know, maybe your Om sounds different to other people. Maybe it isn't the Om, but it's a word that you believe in. That's the word you chant when you really need it. And you know, I always try to say to people, you can only do the practice that works for you. And usually when students come to a teacher, they come to a teacher because they're like, that's inspiring what that person does, and I want to do that. And that's why I went to Pattabhi Jois. So then when I came home, you know, they chant the Vedas a lot of mantra, and not so much the sutras. They do a lot of Vedic chanting, the books of wisdom, and the Bhagavad Gita, and a lot of teachings from the Upanishads. Not so much the sutras, but when I came home and Manju, who is Pattabhi Jois's son, I got to know him very well, and so I invited him to England and we became very good friends. And he said to me, you come to New York and I want you to come and spend some years with me doing my training. So I was like, great, I'm there. So I went and studied with him in his ashram, funnily enough in the meatpacking district, which is very interesting. But you know, it was kind of cool as well because the people there were lovely. And he said, I think there's someone you might like. And so bearing in mind, this one morning we'd done 4 hours of the primary series and the second series. So some of you will know that that's a pretty big, it's like a mammoth asana practice. And so when I'd finished, I was like, oh, I think I want to go and lay in Central Park. And so he said to me, you should go to Jiva Mukti. So he said, let's walk up there now. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to argue with my teacher. So off we go. And we went into the studio. And that night, by luck, because he's not normally in there, was David Life. And so this is David and Sharon here. And so I said, is there space? And they said, well, there's probably just squish into the corner, but yes, you can go in. So of course I went in, and that was my first meeting with David Life, who is an extraordinary person. He's got a great sense of humor and amazing practitioner. He was a monk for some years, and then his beloved Sharon G, she kind of told him to come back to the real world, though I imagine one day he's going to go back into silence. But anyway, what I found was they chanted and they introduced us to Shamdas. So I expected Victoria to tell you about Shamdas. A little bit. So these are Shamdas's books, and I think they're really hard to find. I don't think, now, it's hard to find these books. So this man was a living saint. He didn't even know it, I don't think. And if he had known it, I don't think he would have cared. But people loved him. So he had a home in Vrindavan, and he was a Bhakti yoga, I wouldn't say teacher, he gathered people around him. It was more like that. Like you didn't go there to do teacher trainings, you just showed up, and he was always there to kind of show you round and show you the ropes. And so Sharon introduced us to probably the greatest person I ever met in this realm. And what a beautiful person he was, because he told me, he said, okay, so Pashumati, you have, you know, your practice, I see you love the asana practice, but you need to sing to God more. And I was like, sing to God more? And then he was like, you know, Sri Brahmananda says, you pray for more problems. Pray for more problems? That's not what I wanted to hear at all. I was like, I've got quite a few problems, I don't want to pray for any more. He said, trust me, pray for more problems. So I was like, this is an interesting person, because I can get to say that. So I think I want to sit with him more and find out what else he's got to say. So we spent some considerable time, we brought him to Whistler, and he'd do this with his hair, and then he kind of leaned back and Hari Om! And he'd kind of just go off into this, you could see that he was just with God. And somehow, even if you didn't believe in God yourself, you somehow became kind of intoxicated by this, and you were like, that's weird, like I can feel this presence like I've never felt before. And anyway, to cut a long story short, the more I spent time with him, the more I loved the chanting. And I realised that chanting, it's an expression of a deep love for yourself. Because in the end, God is here. Would you agree? In the end, our God, whoever it is we believe in, is in our heart. Because that's the only place it could be. And so in a way, it teaches us to be better guardians of ourselves. How many people in this room don't think they treat themselves very well? Yeah. Well, I'm here to tell you, I know I didn't treat myself very well. I had a disease in my throat which significantly tells you that you didn't look after yourself. Because the Vishuddha chakra is an area of our body that speaks volumes about how we're not caring for ourselves. And guess what? If we're not looking out for ourselves, we can't help anyone, ever. So we have to look after ourselves. So why do we practice yoga? Anything we do, whether it's asana, pranayama, mantra, deep inner listening, nada, bhakti, devotion, any of those things we do, there's more. Have you found that? I just thought I'd done that, and now there's more. So it's permanently like cleaning a mirror, and you're like, oh, there it is again, it's a bit dull, I'll have to polish it again. But there's something kind of nice in the knowledge of that, because you suddenly begin to realise this is a lifetime's practice, and that's okay. And so I wanted to start our practice today with a sutra that is very close to my heart, because you're very lucky, and I'm sure you know that you have this beautiful place. But I want to share something with you that I really believe, and over the coming year I'm going to try and bring this more for people like yourself who perhaps want to teach others, so that you'll have this in your heart. It isn't the place that matters, it's the people. So people like Emerson and Michael and all the people that they bring here to share with you, you know, that's the most important thing. They are your teachers. Don't ever forget that. So yoga studios, let me tell you, they're irrelevant, unimportant. So if you're practicing out next to a rubbish dump, that's cool. If you're practicing out in the garden, if you're in someone's basement, so long as you're with your beloved teachers, whether you're in physical form with them or you just have a picture of them or someone you're devoted to, that's all that matters. Because at the end of the day, it's them that you come for, not the bricks and mortar. Does that make sense? Because that's the problem with some of the big studios now, is that these very large studios, God bless them, but they're turning it into a business, and it isn't a business. So we're very lucky we have Karma teachers, because this is the original way it was really shared in India. where people would give up their time. People like yourselves would come. You know, if somebody came and they said, look, I don't have a penny. Can you help me? I really want to learn. You don't say, I'll have your 22 bucks or 25 bucks or whatever it is, get out. This is just not the way it is. And you and I both know when you give something away, what happens? It comes straight back, it's like a boomerang. Unless you're like me, I've never really been able to get it back. I'm still practicing that. But hopefully, I remember once I was like, I threw it and I was like, that for sure is not coming back. It disappeared off in the forest somewhere. I hope it didn't kill anything. Anyway, so it's really interesting to kind of think of the fact that give it away. The more you give away, the happier your life will be. And in the end, you don't have to worry about all that stuff. So in a way, I kind of feel sorry for people who have these huge corporations and they're like grabbing and snatching and they live in fear. And none of you are going to live like that ever. Even if tomorrow, like I come down in my old car, luckily I've got Victoria and Carolina, and I'm like, I hope we're going to make it. I'll tell you a very quick funny story. I lost my back number plate, which is not good. And so I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do to get home to Whistler? So I'm looking around, and so the Jiva Mukti book, it's almost sacrilege. I was like, that's the only bit of paper I've got that I could write the number plate on. So I cut the back cover off, wrote my number plate on and stuck it on the back of my car. And then I'm like going, Hari Om, David G, like this, and I kind of taped it on my car. And you know what, for a whole week I drove like that. When I went into ICBC, they said, we can't even believe you got away with that, because that's like, no one gets away with that. The police should have pulled you over. And I said, well, I had one following me. And she's like, I don't get it. And I said, well, this is why. Of course, they didn't really understand, but I turned it over and I said, look, these are the 5 tenets, and this is the Jiva Mukti book, and you can see it looking But anyway, I do have a normal number plate now. You see what I mean? So if you believe in something, it will save you. For sure. So this is for you guys, for the rest of your training. This is a candle, so you can light it, made by one of my friends in Whistler. And she's just disappeared. So I ordered some more candles. And I went into Nesta's and she said no one knows where she's gone, she's left Whistler. So God bless her. And so this is one of her homemade candles. So I'm going to leave that for you, and then Emerson and Michael can light it appropriately, made by a very beautiful holy being. Like I said, holy beings usually show up in your life and then they disappear again. Have you ever noticed that? It's very cool. They come, they give you a teaching, and then they leave. Do you just hold that 1 second? You might want to write this down. So this is a message from Sri Brahmananda Saraswati. And this is from the Jiva Mukti teacher training. So this is specially for you. You can do anything by these powers. You can do anything by these powers. So number 1 is the power of cooperation. Number 2 is the power of love. Of course. Personally, I put that as number 1, but I'm sure you probably did anyway. And then number 3 is the power of friendliness. No particular order. Number 4 is the power of meditation. And this is the best. Number 5 is the power of silence and fearlessness. So don't ever doubt how powerful being silent is. And so the reason he says this is because misunderstanding is the cause of all problems. Misunderstanding is the cause of all problems. No understanding is far better than misunderstanding. Isn't that interesting? So Sri Brahmananda, let me know if you need me to repeat that again, I will. So misunderstanding is the cause of all problems. No understanding is far better than misunderstanding. And you'll see that he actually wrote this after he'd had a stroke. So they photocopied it, so his whole right side was incapacitated. I know sometimes that is very difficult to understand when you're kind of going through the hell realms in your own space. But this is a very important message from Sri Brahmananda Saraswati. It's beautiful. I really wanted to share that with you. And then this beautiful sutra. So this sutra is important, and I'm wondering if you might have. How many of you have you been studying the sutras with Emerson? Yes. So the first book one, Samadhipada. Have you been doing a few sutras from? So the sutras are very important. They really are, for numerous reasons, for yogis. And so, do you think yoga is for everyone? No, you're right, it isn't. It's not for everyone. So, and why? Because not everybody wants to be free. Some people are very happy in their bondage or in their world. But you, I suspect, are not. So you are the people who want to be free. Good on you. And I do as well. And continue to want to be like that. So these sutras are like contemplations for us to figure out how we could live our lives better. So this is in my opinion, this is my sutra that I try to live by. And I want to share this with you because it's very important. I think it might help. So this is Sutra 33 from Book 1. And I'm going to read the words. And would you mind writing them down? You might already have it in a book, but if you write it down, it will help you. So I'll spell it out for you. Maitri. Maitri. And that means friendliness. And Karuna. Karuna. Now on the top of the A is a dash. So you just cover the top of the A with a little dash. So, so the last A, Karuna. And guess what that means? Compassion. And this will all make sense in the end. And then Mudita. So that's Mudita. What a beautiful word, and it means delight. Mudita. Mudita, and it means delight. Upekkha. So upekkha means disregard, and that's spelled Upeksa. It's always good to write something because then you'll really remember this. So this means disregard.
Thank you.
Disregard. Now, the word when it's chanted is upeksanam. So we've got to add the anam bit, A-N-A-M, and that means of these four. Because Sanskrit is very interesting, it's like always broken up. So anam means of these four. And then sukha. Who knows what sukha means? So if I said suk, you're really suk. I don't know you, but you look like you could be really suk. You look like you could be really suk as well. Do you know what suk means? You've definitely got a sukness there. Sweetness, suk. Sugar, sweet. It also means happy. So if suk means sweet, what do you think duk means? Dukkha. So you could use the word sour, unhappy, bitter, not sweet. So sukha is S-U-K-H-A and duk dukkha is D-U-H-K-H-A. Do we want to be dukkha? We definitely don't, though sometimes we are. Punya, P-U-N-Y-A. So this is a beautiful word, it means virtuous. Punya, P-U-N-Y-A. Virtuous. Bless you. Ganesh. Apunya, A-P-U-N-Y-A. Wicked. I've got to be honest, I don't really like the word wicked, but since those Swami Satchidananda said it, that's okay with us, but I always think there might be a better word to use. But anyway, apunya, so they're talking wicked is what that means. And then they say Visaya, but in the chant it's Visai. So it's actually V-I-S-A-Y-A, and that means in the domain. In the domain. Vaisayanam, so again there's that word anam of these four. It's such a cool translation of this sutra. And this is with respect to the previous four, and you'll understand what the great four are in a moment. Bhavanta, B-H-A-V-A-N-A-T-A-H, and it's also pronounced Bhavantas with an S on the end. And that means cultivating the attitudes. So what type of attitudes would we be best to cultivate, do you reckon? I'll repeat that. B-H-A-V-A-N-A-T-A-H. And remember, you can drop the H and put an S there as well. So it can be Bhavanta or Bhavantas. And that means cultivating the attitudes. What would be the best attitude to cultivate? Yeah, one of sweet and kindness. It doesn't mean you become a doormat, by the way. So there's something very different between being a peaceful warrior. Like Virabhadrasana was not really, like he came out of the floor, out of Shiva's dreadlocks, and he was certainly not, he came out and really caused quite a lot of trouble. So he really said, hey, this is not happening. So, it doesn't mean that we're a doormat, but we can also provide this peaceful background for cultivating sweetness. Chitta, so C-I-T-T-A, and that means mind stuff. Chitta, mind stuff, yeah. So that shows up quite a lot, Chitta does. In the second sutra, Yogash, Chitta Vritti Nirodha. When one stops identifying with the thoughts, then there's peace and equanimity. When the cessations and the fluctuations of the mind cease, then there's yoga. So that word chitta, it shows up a lot. Because what do you think mind stuff can do to us? It can spin us around in circles, on and on and on, until sometimes you feel like you're quite mad. It can make us very neurotic. And that's why they want us to try and move beyond our thoughts to the best of our ability. And also, if you have too many thoughts and no space in your mind, you can't cultivate anything. It's a bit like hoarding in the mind. How many of you like to stay in your dramas or your stories? Be honest. Come on. Yeah, we all do it, don't we? There's nothing better than a good old dramatic poor me. It's great. It makes you feel good, doesn't it? Even for a couple of hours, you're like, this is so great, wallowing in my own kind of misery. But then all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, you know what, I can let that go now. So that's what they're trying to help us understand. The mind stuff's there, but we don't need it to overrun our whole life. That happened, but you know what, I'm going to let that go now. It doesn't serve me anymore. Make sense? So that's kind of cool. Now this is a beautiful word, prasadanam. P-R-A-S-A-D A-N-A-M. Undisturbed calmness. Undisturbed calmness. How many of you are like that all the time? Your face tells a million pictures. Yes, so that's what we're aiming for in our own way, and we're permanently polishing the mirror. And guess what? We need 4 keys, because we're going to need these 4 keys for these 4 things that show up in life. So I'd like you to listen really carefully, because this is the only bit of talking I'm going to do, and this is important because if you hear this it might help you. So this is what Swami Satchidananda says. Whether you are interested in reaching samadhi or plan to ignore yoga entirely, I would advise you to remember at least this one sutra. It will be very helpful to keep your peace of mind in your daily life. You may not have any great goal in life, but just try to follow this one sutra very well, and you will see its efficiency. And in my own experience, this sutra became my guiding light to keep my mind serene always. Who would not like serenity of the mind always? Who would not like to be happy always? Everybody wants that. So Master Patanjali gives 4 keys: friendliness, compassion, delight, and disregard. Write the 4 keys down. Friendliness, compassion, delight, and disregard. And I'll explain them so that we'll always remember this, and we'll always remember this sutra. So there are only 4 kinds of locks in the world, and you need to keep these 4 keys with you always. When you come across any one of these 4 locks, you will have to have the proper key to open it. What are the 4 locks? Sukha, dukkha, punya, apunya. So this is the happy people, the unhappy people, the virtuous, and the wicked. So here's the one thing to bear in mind. Any one of us can be all 4 of those things. And probably have. At some time in our life, we've probably gone through being wicked, being unhappy, being virtuous, and being happy. Am I right? So this is not, you're wicked and I'm really virtuous. This isn't like that. This is understanding that as we evolve in life, we see something and we're like, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to be like that anymore. And so as we're tidying ourselves up on our mat, and for some of us, we're sobbing away on our mat. We're really, how many of you have had a good old cry on your yoga? That acknowledgement that we need those 4 keys, and those four things show up often, and we've got to have the key to unlock it. So here's how we do that. When you see happy people, use the friendliness key. Works every time. Why should Patanjali say this? Because even 4,000 years ago, there must have been people who were not happy at seeing others happy. It is still the same way. Suppose some people drive up in a big car, park in front of a huge palatial home, get out, and some other people are standing on the pavement in the hot sun getting tired. How many of those people will be happy? Not many. They will still be saying, see the big car, the big house? Those people are sucking the blood of the labourers. We come across like that. They are always jealous. We don't want to be like that. When a person gets a name or fame or a high position, they try to criticise others sometimes. And sometimes we try to criticise them. So each one of us, we have to look and we have to say, this is our brothers. And we have to come together and bring the friendliness key and try to be happy. Some strings must be pulled, and sometimes we know that when certain strings are pulled, we must know that that person maybe got there on their own merit. By that way, we never want to be jealous, we don't want to be disturbed, and we certainly don't want to disturb our own serenity. Those people simply got out of a car, any car, they walked to a house, any house. And you are not burning up, instead you are happy and saying, how fortunate for that person. This would make everyone happy to understand that you're not jealous and you're not having some bad time about that. So, because it's not our lot, maybe we don't even want that big house and that car, but still we're happy for them. So this is a beautiful teaching. And then that way, because in England, you know, what I noticed was, it might happen here, but years ago, when someone's successful, the English paparazzi love to pull people down and really harm them. They've done it their whole lives, like with royalty, you know, with people who are trying to do good deeds. They always want to say, but that person's a really bad person, no one knows about their history. And you're like, who cares about their past? They're doing something good now in this present moment. That's what really matters. So this is quite an important teaching. And then they kind of take this further as well, because they say, you know, God blesses us all in different ways. Some of us sometimes maybe need to live in the gutter. That's our own personal blessing, to make us grow and become better teachers. Whereas somebody else, they might not be able to cope with that situation. So this is sometimes, some of the best teachers I've ever met, the people with the least stuff. They're definitely the people who, they're just happy. Like if you go in India, no one's really got anything. So you go into a house and they're like, would you like some dinner with me? And you know, this person's hands are really dirty and they're like mixing up the rice. And you're kind of there and you're going, God, I hope me in my special clean world, I hope I'm not going to die like eating their food. But I'm going to eat it anyway because this person's made this beautiful food. So when you put that mindset on, wow, this holy being's made this for me, then it's likely that, you know, of course you don't get ill, but sometimes some people do. But just to be with those people, they haven't got any stuff, and they're in this beautiful space, and you feel, wow, this is so nice being here with nothing. So this is a very good teaching, to show friendliness and love for whoever. When some nation is prospering and the neighbour country is jealous of it and wants to ruin its economy, of course we don't want any part of that. So we should always have the key of friendliness when we see happy people. What's the next lot? Well, the next lot, of course, is unhappy people. Well, Swamiji says people have their own karma. They must perhaps have to work through their karmic tendencies, and each one of us are happy to burn off those seeds and try to do better, change our attitudes. We may have to go through a little bit of suffering while we do that, but as we burn off these seeds, so we can begin to plant new seeds. We can start to lend a hand. If we can share half of our loaf, we share it. We're always merciful. And by doing that, we retain the peace and the poise of our mind. Remember, our goal is to keep the serenity of our mind, whether our mercy is going to help others or not. By our own feeling of mercy, at least we are helped. And then it comes to the third kind, which of course is the virtuous people. So these are the ones where we feel delighted, how great they are, like Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King. They might even be people in your own family. My beloved mother, it's Mother's Day tomorrow. I know some people didn't perhaps have the best relationships with their parents. Of course, you know, it's a fact that that can happen as well, but we've had a guardian or someone, or a brother or a sister, or someone we cared about. They could be virtuous to us, and we hold them in high esteem, like we love them. Does everybody have someone like that? Everybody in the room? It could be a dog, could be a tree, could be a blade of grass. Weirdly enough, it can sometimes be an angry person. Everybody has a teaching of virtue in some strange way. It's amazing how you can suddenly wake up with some really instant karmic seed burning off by even meeting someone who's really angry with you. It's really interesting. And you walk away and you're like, wow, that was a hell of a teaching right there. Anybody had that happen? It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Sometimes it's our own. My son was very angry with me yesterday. Yeah, he was very cross. He wanted a party. And I told him he couldn't have it at my house. And he really, he got very angry with me about that. And he said, we're going to go and have it in the forest. And I can't wait to move to Vancouver. And, so I just let him do his thing. And, you just, God bless you. I was trying to think to myself, I probably did that to my own mother, so I'm just getting a bit of my own karmic back. What goes around comes around, doesn't it? Do you remember when you were 17 and you were always right? Remember that? No one else was right, but you were. You don't know what it's like. I was in love and that person's left me and the end of the world is here. And I don't know, we are our poor hormones. It's like the hell round. So virtuous company, we feel delighted. We sometimes even want to imitate their qualities because we want to feel what they feel. Like, who wouldn't want to feel like Mother Teresa? I mean, that woman helped more children than probably anybody single-handedly. She had two little bowls. One she washed her sari in, and then the other one she ate her food in. That's all she had. Extraordinary woman. The story goes that they used to have to hold her down because she was so light she could literally lift off the floor. And I don't doubt it. Because when you've got no heavy burden on your shoulders, do you feel that? Like when you're carrying the weight of the world, you're kind of like this, aren't you? Like a little walnut of malice, like coming at me, and no one knows what it's like, and you start to feel yourself going to the. But then when you're all light and you're out there, it's like you can literally levitate off the floor. Do you feel that? So it's nice to be around virtuous company, appreciate their qualities and cultivate it in your own life. And of course, last but by no means least, the wicked. So we come across wicked people sometimes, we can't deny that. So what should our attitude be? Compassionate indifference. Well, some people are like that. Probably I was like that yesterday. And hopefully I'm a better person now. And maybe we'll be all right tomorrow. Maybe we will learn. So don't try to advise such people, because wicked people will seldom take advice. If you try to advise them, you will lose your peace. For sure. So you can't fix people, just so you know. You can fix yourself, but you can't fix others. That's their karma. It's bad enough trying to sort our own egos out. Imagine trying to sort out other people's. It just won't happen. So you're doing the work on yourself. And so there's this beautiful story, and I'm going to share this with you. This is a story from the Panchatantra, which I was told as a small child. One rainy day, a monkey was sitting on a tree branch getting completely drenched. Right opposite, on another branch of the same tree, there was a small sparrow sitting in a hanging nest. Now, sparrows build the most beautiful nests. They usually build them hanging down so they swing with the wind and the breeze. It's like a beautiful cabin with an upper chamber, a reception room, a bedroom below, and even a delivery room. Now, if we were going to give birth to little ones, this would be the ultimate place to admire a sparrow's nest. It's warm, it's cozy, and the little sparrow's peeping out, and he's seeing the poor monkey. So he looks across and he says, "Oh, my dear friend, I'm so small. I don't even have hands like you. I only have a beak. But with only that, I built a nice house, expecting this rainy day. Even if the rain continues for days, I'm going to be warm and snug inside my perfect house. I heard Darwin saying that you are the forefathers of human beings. So why don't you use your brain and build a nice small hut where you can protect yourself during the rain?" Well, can you imagine the monkey's face? Like, can you imagine him looking back at that little bird? So he's like looking back at the bird and he says, And apparently his face was terrible. It was like fire and thunder. And he goes, "Oh, you little devil, how dare you try to advise me because you are warm and cozy in your nest, and teasing me as well. You wait, you will see where you are." So the monkey proceeds to jump across onto the tree, pulls the sparrow out the nest, throws him onto one of the branches and starts tearing his nest to pieces until there's nothing left of it. And he says, "Now you can get wet and drenched like me." And so they both sat on the branch like this. And so the little sparrow, the poor little bird, can't even fly. He's just sat on the branch, drenched like the monkey. Now, when this story was told to me, I was quite young, and I still remember it. Sometimes we come across such monkeys, and if you advise them, they take it as an insult. They will think you are proud of your position. If you sense even a little bit of that tendency in someone, stay away, for he or she will have to learn by experience. By giving advice to such people, you will only lose the serenity and the peace of your mind. Isn't that a brilliant teaching? The best. So don't do it, however tempting it is. So you all know that there is some terrible, terrible things that go on. Obviously in law, some things can be stopped. But as we all know, sometimes you don't know what's going on. So you can't try and step in and say, "I'm the better person, I'm going to do this." All you can do is the best you can. Luckily, we do have people who can see things before they happen, and they can actually say, "You know what, I'm going to take that child away because, you know, you're not in a good state of mind, you can't really look after them, so we're going to take that child and look after them." But this is usually groups of people that have been doing this for years, not yoga teachers. We're not there to do that. Yeah, as you know. So I'm a paramedic, so I deal with a lot of medical issues as well. But one thing I've learned, and this is the thing, is a lot of yoga teachers now believe that they can fix people's problems. We can't. We can't say, "You've got to come off your medication. Meditation is going to help you, you're going to be good to go." Or, we can't go up to somebody who is someone who abuses children and try and advise them what to do. We have to put those people with people who can actually know what to do with those people. We have to give them the real advice, the real trained advice. So that's where they're not saying don't take that child away, they're just saying that we have to understand the situation before we kind of step in and really try and say, "You're a bad person, you're doing a terrible thing." Because we don't know what actually happened to take people to that place. Of course, my thing, I've had a bit of dealings with people who've been abused, and usually an abused person, we all know this as well, when we've been abused, we usually want to abuse others, because it's the only way we can actually feel some consistency in our life. And so that's where you need the proper format to help you get beyond that. And that's where meditation can help. Some medical help can help. Chanting can help by reaffirming. Instead of saying, "I hate you, I hate you, I hate you," you're saying, "I love you, I love you, I love you." You start to feel better. So it's a very good point. Ultimately, we never want to see anybody hurt, least alone children, And so I know, we've all perhaps experienced something like that ourselves, or we've witnessed it, and it's painful. I witnessed, I look at the children, the animals. How many of you read some of the posts about the animals? Like right now, the white rhino is about to be extinct. There's one male rhino, and he's got armed guards around him permanently. You could get very angry. But what I do is I send as much love as I can to those people that are protecting him. And I pray for the people that want to kill him and take his horn. I pray for them that they're going to see the light. Because if we start getting into that hatred thing, it keeps that sad game going on. It's so hard. Of course, it's a massive subject. If I was here for a week, we could talk about that more, because it's such a big subject, it is. God bless the people that help child abused, both the people who are the abusers and the people that have been abused. It's like We can't be there as judges, we just have to try and do the best we can. Try and create serenity in our own minds, and that might help us help others. Does that make sense? Thank you for saying that though. I agree with you, it's very disturbing. This is a book I would really, if you can, try and get it. Even if you can borrow it from a library. So it's The Yoga Sutras of Master Patanjali by Swami Satchidananda. Swami Satchidananda. So he was the guru that opened the Woodstock Music Festival with 500,000 people. So he's a pretty special man. So he said when he opened Woodstock, he said, with music you have the power to heal or you have the power to destroy. So, and you know why that is? Because when you chant beautiful words, how do you feel? Good. But then like the other night I was hearing some music, it was like bitch, that, this, that, and I thought, that is terrible. Like, what is that piece of music? So, you know, if you hear words that are really negative words, they kind of make us feel ill. Yeah. But then when you hear something like, you know, Vande Gurunam Charanana Vinde Sanda Sheta Swatma Sukhavado Bode Nishte Ise Janglikaya Mane Samsara Alalamo Shantiye Abaho Puru Chakram Shankar Chakrasi Dharanam Sahasra Shirasam Shvetam Pranamami Patanjalim. So all these sutras are reaffirming in us to try to be better, to try to find serenity of the mind. So by repeating something enough, we feel empowered. Should we chant? Let's do it. So I wanted to share that. How many people, is that helpful, that sutra to you? Swami Satchidananda.
Can I take a photo?
Please, yeah, if you want to use the art, I'm going to leave it there actually.